What the hell was going on in the 80s and 90s? Was every child left unsupervised? Because if you're a permanent makeup artist, one thing you're going to see a lot of is scars in eyebrows and lips. And unless you want to turn many clients away, you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. So I'm going to give you all my tips on dealing with scar tissue in permanent makeup. Stick around to the end as I'm going to give you my most reliable methods of implanting pigment to get the best results. So let's crack on. So coffee tables, baseball bats, errant dogs, whatever the reason, there are a lot of scars on people's faces, particularly eyebrows. And these people still want to be able to have great permanent makeup. So let's start off by looking at what scars are. Scars are formed when the skin is cut or traumatized. It's the skin's way of pulling itself back together, and scars are made mostly by the protein collagen. Vitamin C plays a huge role in the forming of scars. Did you know that if you get scurvy through lack of vitamin C, your scars can actually break down?
I did not know that.
So here's the things you need to know about tattooing scar tissue. Scar tissue does not act the same way as normal skin, and you'll have to be much more careful when implanting pigment. It can be a lot thinner or thicker than normal skin and is far more prone to blowouts where the needle pierces the dermis and deposits pigment below it. So you need to take extra care with your depth and pressure. Scar tissue will also not hold pigment in the same way, so you won't necessarily be able to create beautiful hair strokes or scattered pixels. It may be more of a case of just getting the pigment in as best you can. You'll also need to manage your client's expectations if they have a scar. It may not take the pigment well and often needs more sessions. I would also get the clients to sign an addendum to document that they understand there may be limitations. If the client's scar has turned keloid and is thick and raised, then I would avoid treating this client. It's possible that the rest of the permanent makeup could react like that, and it's just best not to take the risk. Now let's talk technique. This video is brought to you by PMU. This is a comprehensive mentorship program to help new and struggling artists perfect their skills and smash their permanent makeup career. There are multiple levels of membership, so hit the PMU link in the description and let's see how we can help you.
So here we have our brow with a scar, and I'm just going to start off whip shading the tail. But when we get to that scar, we want to change our technique. This is, I'm not going to say it's an aggressive technique, but there's a lot of movement on the skin. So we're putting lots of tiny scattered dots, but we're moving our needle very quickly. And it just, as the skin is so different on scar tissue, it's probably not going to hold that well. So when I get up to the scar itself, I'm just going to change my technique. So I'm most likely I'm most likely going to change to a pointillism technique, and on this scar just do lots of tiny dots to blend this in. Now at the moment I'm using a 1RL. If this scar tissue is very thin, a 1RL may be too small for it, and you may want to change to something more like a shader needle, something like a 3RS. Because the pressure of this and the sharpness of this needle may well pierce that thin skin and blow out under the skin. That's going to be really unsightly. You also may find that when you're working on scars on the eyebrows or lips, that your client finds it more painful than the rest of it. So with that pointillism, as you can see with that technique, we're just dotting onto the skin. The needle doesn't actually move in the skin, and it's at 90 degrees, so it's in and it's out. So it's just the least traumatic way of depositing pigment into the skin. On the other side of the scar, I can continue with the same technique I was using before. And that is how I would blend up to that scar. And then I can just continue shading up to my scar. with the whip shading. And that's going to be the easiest way to blend in an ombre. So the two techniques that I would recommend, pointillism or using fine circles to just implant the colour as quickly as possible. You may want to go to a bigger needle than a 1RL.
If you've got a client that wants a hair stroke brow and they have quite a bad scar in their eyebrow, you're going to really struggle to get hair strokes to implant, especially with a microblade. This client wanted a really natural microbladed eyebrow, but in the scar area, we still used pointillism. This was the finished result, and even though we didn't microblade over the scar tissue, we still managed to implant plenty of pigment, and the result looks amazing. At her second session, she did need some extra pointillism in that scar tissue to make it look as dark as the rest of the brow, but it was still a great result.
So if you're outlining a lip, I'm still going to be using brown pigment here, but if you're outlining a lip and maybe you're using an etching, shuffling movement, and you get to a scar, that might be a little bit deep for scar tissue. I've got quite a lot of clients who have had quite bad scars, maybe dog bites on their lips or just cuts. So to outline there, I'm going to be using something much finer, like a pendulum movement across the scar. I find that people with scars across the lips, it's much more sensitive. So just something really light to outline. And when you're actually working on the lips, again, pointillism or circles in that lip. And you may need to change your needle up a bit, just to try and get the pigment in as quickly as possible. Then you need to manage your client's expectations and tell them that it might not go in quite as well. But I've had some great results from lips. So it's just taking it easy, changing up your technique, managing your client's expectations, and changing your needle where necessary. This client came for lip blush and she had quite bad cold sore scars, and she'd also been bitten by a dog when she was young. So there was some quite bad scarring on her bottom lip. By being super careful, we were able to get this fantastic result. Her healed results were really good as well. She retained it very well. So now we've discussed what to do with scars, we need to know how to do these movements properly. I've created these videos on needle techniques and also pointillism. So watching these is your next step to creating perfect results on scars. See you next time.